Hello students and welcome to the Virtual Learning Network. This is session 6 for Modern India 1857 to 1964 and here we will discuss consolidation of the Raj, frontier and foreign policy. The topics to be covered are Introduction, International Situation, Northwest Frontier Province, Persia and the Persian Gulf, Tibet, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan and Northeastern Frontier Agency (NEFA). Now first we will start with introduction. Can we say that before 1947 had an independent foreign policy of her own? To a certain extent it was so. अगर हम ये कहें कि 1947 से पहले भी इंडिया की एक इंडिपेंडेंट फॉरेन पॉलिसी थी तो वो कुछ एक्सटेंट तक थी. वी हैव द फॉलोइंग आर्ग्यूमेंट्स इन सपोर्ट ऑफ दिस पॉइंट. द इन्वेजन्स ऑफ अफगानिस्तान एंड पर्शिया दैट इज ईरान and the plundering expeditions of the frontier tribes which had been going on for a long time ended with the consolidation of British rule in India. जो अफ़गानिस्तान और पर्शिया की इन्वेजन्स थी और जो एक्सपेडिशंस थी फ्रंटियर ट्राइब्स की वो ब्रिटिश रूल के साथ ख़त्म हो गई थी. बीइंग अ बिग एंड स्ट्रॉन्ग कंपोनेंट ऑफ द एम्पायर इंडिया ऑलवेज हैड some weight in the formulation of British foreign policy. Then, because of distance between India and England, the British government of India always had some discretion and a certain degree of initiative in the formulation of foreign policy of India. जो डिस्टेंस था इंडिया और इंग्लैंड के बीच में उसकी वजह से ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट जो थी इंडिया की उसमें भी कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स आती रहती थी क्योंकि फॉरेन पॉलिसी को फॉर्म करने के लिए क्योंकि उनके बीच में बहुत ज़्यादा डिस्टेंस था. Moreover, the British imperial interest in some spheres coincided with those of India, such as those involving Russia, Persia and China, which have a fillip to the evolution of India's foreign policy. Next is international situation. When we scan the world situation during the period of our study, we find it favorable to the British. अगर हम ब्रिटिश रूल के टाइम पे देखें जो वर्ल्ड सिचुएशन थी वो ब्रिटिशर्स की वजह से थी और ब्रिटिशर्स की फेवर में थी. For proper understanding, it is necessary to explain the situation by dividing the subject matter into sections such as British supremacy in the subcontinent, the decline of China, the threat from Russia, Afghanistan, and Second Afghan War. Now we will discuss them one by one. First is British supremacy in the subcontinent. After defeating the Portuguese and the Dutch in the early stages of British conquest of India, the British and the French were involved in a worldwide conflict for domination. पोर्टुगल और जर्मनी को डिफीट करने के बाद जो ब्रिटिशर्स और फ्रेंच इनके बीच में हमेशा ही लड़ाई चलती रही थी कि कौन सब कॉन्टिनेंट पे राज करेगा. देन फ्रॉम 1740 to 1800 द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन दीज टू पावर्स वर प्राइमरली कन्फाइंड टू साउथ इंडिया. The French, though defeated in the 7 Years' War, became a serious threat to the British Empire in India with the rise of Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan in Mysore and of Napoleon in France. Napoleon's Egyptian campaign and the consequent Battle of Nile and the French relations with Tipu Sultan threatened the British in India. With the defeat of Napoleon in Egypt in 1788 and of Tipu Sultan in India, the French menace disappeared altogether in the south. Then the decline of China. Despite cultural contacts and regular visits of the Chinese travelers, India never apprehended aggression from China. In the 19th century, the Chinese power and prestige rapidly declined. This was a period when many European powers were trying to open up China for trade. The attention of Chinese was drawn towards resisting these powers rather than over its northeastern borders. Then the threat from Russia. The idea of Russian peril was propagated by Lord Palmerston, British Foreign Secretary in the mid 19th century, and the term first time mentioned by William Bentinck, the Indian Governor General, was believed to reflect a real danger. Mirza Muhammad succeeded to the throne of Persia after his grandfather's death in 1834. He was favorably inclined towards Russia. सो मिर्ज़ा मोहम्मद भी बहुत ज़्यादा फेवर करते थे रशिया को, और इस वजह से भी रशिया से थ्रेट आने लगा था ब्रिटिशर्स को. इट अपीयर्ड एज दो द रशियंस वर डिटरमाइंड टू कंट्रोल द होल ऑफ नियर एंड मिडल ईस्ट. देन थ्रेट फ्रॉम अफगानिस्तान. The British reaction to the Russian posture was twofold. One move was to occupy advanced stations in Central Asia and to secure commanding influence in Afghanistan. This came to be known as forward policy, which was generally held by the members of the Conservative Party. The other move, known as the policy of masterly inactivity or stationary school, generally supported by the liberals, aimed at reaching a diplomatic understanding with Russia and adopting the policy of watchful non-intervention as far as Afghanistan was concerned. Next is Second Afghan War. In 1874, the Gladstone ministry fell due to the defeat of Liberal Party at the polls. The new ministry was headed by the Conservatives. 1874 में लिबरल पार्टी जो थी वो हार गई थी, और जो नई मिनिस्ट्री थी वो हेड की थी कंजर्वेटिव्स ने. डिज़रायली फर्मली बिलीव्ड इन द फॉरवर्ड पॉलिसी एंड ग्रेजुअली फोर्स द इंडियन गवर्नमेंट टू द सेकेंड अफगान वॉर. डिज़रायली पहले से ही फॉरवर्ड पॉलिसी में बिलीव करते थे और उन्होंने इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को फोर्स किया था कि वो सेकेंड अफगान वॉर में पार्ट लें. द रिजल्ट्स ऑफ दिस वॉर वर नॉट स्ट्राइकिंगली डिफरेंट फ्रॉम दोज ऑफ द फर्स्ट अफगान वॉर. While on the other side of the Hindu Kush, the Russian imperial expansion continued unabated. Their occupation of Merv caused tremendous nervousness in Calcutta and London. A year later, they extended control over Punjab, and in 1893, they overtook Pamir Plateau, which bordered directly on Kashmir. तो एक साल बाद फिर उन्होंने पंजाब पे भी कंट्रोल ले लिया था, और 1893 में पमीर प्लाटू पे भी, जो कि कश्मीर से बॉर्डर रखता है. By 1890, the European diplomatic scene began to experience restructuring of relations. Germany, after the fall of Bismarck, alienated Russia, forcing a bipolarization of powers. In this process, the old enemies of England, that is France and Russia, came closer to each other, leading finally to the formation of Triple Entente in 1907. Thus, they resolved their political difference relating to their conflicting interest in different continents. Next is Northwest Frontier Policy. The annexation of Sindh and Punjab brought the British into direct contact with the hill tribes. It was an undefined border beyond which lay the tangle of great hills cut by deep winding valleys. तो सिंध और पंजाब की एनेक्सेशन के बाद ब्रिटिशर्स ने हिल वैलीज में कब्जा करना शुरू किया. द नॉर्दर्न पार्ट इनहैबिटेड बाय द पठान्स वाज एडमिनिस्टर्ड बाय द पंजाब प्रोविंस, while the southern part occupied by the Baluchis, known as the Sindh frontier, was then under Bombay. The hill tribes, however, were practically free, owing only nominal allegiance to the Amir of Kabul. Inhabiting dry and difficult terrain, living on meager resources, but endowed with courage, endurance, and military skill, these people frequently indulged in mass raids and plundering of the British Indian border areas. Then, on the Sindh frontier, the closed frontier system was adopted. तो नॉर्थ वेस्ट फ्रंटियर के पास दो अलग अलग प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट्स थी, जो कि पंजाब और बॉम्बे थे, क्योंकि वो दोनों डिस्टिंक्ट मेथड फॉलो करते थे, तो उनके रिलेशंस जो थे ट्राइब को कंडक्ट करने के वो भी डिफरेंट थे. ऑन द सिंध फ्रंटियर क्लोज्ड फ्रंटियर सिस्टम वाज अडॉप्टेड, एंड अंडर दिस सिस्टम द फ्रंटियर वाज पेट्रोल्ड and no tribesman from beyond the border was allowed to enter British territory without a pass. The Punjab frontier, on the other hand, was kept an open frontier. For its protection, forts and garrisons were built to guard the narrow passes. Next is the Durand Line 1893. On Lord Lansdowne's insistence, Sir Mortimer Durand was appointed to negotiate a boundary agreement with the Amir of Kabul, settling forever the responsibility of the Kabul government concerning the tribes on the Indus border. Establishment of peace on the northwest frontier was a complex problem, as usually the Amir of Kabul intrigued with the foreign tribes. So नॉर्थ वेस्ट फ्रंटियर पे पीस स्टैब्लिश करना बहुत मुश्किल होता जा रहा था, और इसलिए लॉर्ड लैंसडाउन की असिस्टेंस में और उनकी इंसिस्टेंस से सर मॉर्टिमर डुरेंट को अपॉइंट किया गया ताकि वो बाउंड्री अग्रीमेंट नेगोशिएट कर सके आमिर के साथ, आमिर ऑफ काबुल के साथ. द अग्रीमेंट कंक्लूडेड ऑन 12th November 1893, which was as follows. First, the Amir of Kabul was to retain Wakhan, Asmar, Kafiristan, Mohammed, and a portion of Waziristan. And the British were allowed to retain Swat, Bajaur, Darwaz Kuram Valley, Chalgay, and New Chaman. The tribal areas of Gomal Pass were also given to British. Then next is Persia and the Persian Gulf. The region consisting of Persia, the coast of Arabian Sea, and the Persian Gulf was strategically very important to British, as it contained the approach routes through land and sea to India. So पर्शिया और पर्शियन गल्फ जो थे और जो अरेबियन सी की कोस्ट थी वो पहले से ही बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट थी ब्रिटिशर्स के लिए, क्योंकि वो इंडिया तक का रूट बनाती थी उनके लिए शिप के थ्रू. So on the land route, the British tried to check the invaders at various points of time. First the French forces, then the Russian. The British foiled the Persian attempt to occupy Herat. After two Afghan wars, Persia by the Treaty of 1907 was divided into British and Russian zones. So treaty के बाद पर्शिया हाफ डिवाइड हो गया था, दो पार्ट्स में डिवाइड हो गया था, आधा मिला था रशिया को और बाकी ब्रिटिश को. While efforts were being made to check the increasing German influence in the region, revolution broke out in Russia in 1917, which gave the British an opportunity to occupy the whole of Persia. On the sea route, particularly around the Persian Gulf, the British consolidated their position by establishing control over strategic sea and coastal areas. Significant among such places were Mauritius, Zanzibar, Muscat, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, etc. Next is Tibet. Gradually, the British interest in Tibet increased. Among many factors accountable for this increase in interest are: first, in view of the declining power of China and scramble among the foreign powers to divide it into spheres of influence, Tibet assumed great strategic importance, particularly for the British and Russians. क्योंकि चाइना की पावर डिक्लाइन कर रही थी और फॉरेन पावर्स भी डिवाइड हो रही थी, तो इसलिए तिब्बत जो था वो बहुत ज़्यादा स्ट्रैटेजिकली इम्पॉर्टेंट हो गया था ब्रिटिश और रशियंस के लिए. And after the extension of British influence over Nepal, Bhutan and Sikkim, the boundaries of British India and Tibet came very close to each other. So जब ब्रिटिश ने अपना एक्सटेंशन फैलाया था, पूरा नेपाल कब्जे में कर लिया था, भूटान और सिक्किम भी आ गए थे, उसके बाद तिब्बत बचा था जो बहुत क्लोज आता था इस बाउंड्री से, तो इस वजह से भी उनकी वहाँ पे अकाउंटेबिलिटी बढ़ गई थी. When the Russian advance reached Pamirs, it posed a threat to the security of India from the northern side. Lastly, during the 19th century, British interest in tea and shawl wool considerably increased. Then Nepal. After securing the control of the valley of Kathmandu in 1768, the Gorkhas steadily encroached upon both east and west and occupied Kumaon, Garhwal, and the Shimal Hills. These areas were conceded to the British after the Gorkhas were defeated by the Treaty of Sagoli in 1816. Next is Sikkim. Between Nepal and Bhutan, there is a small Himalayan state known as Sikkim. It had two passes leading to Tibet. तो तिब्बत को एक्वायर करने के लिए पहले उन्हें सिक्किम एक्वायर करना था क्योंकि उसके लिए दो पासेस निकलते हैं जो तिब्बत तक पहुंचते हैं. वन रोड थ्रू कलिम्पोंग एंड जलेब पास लीड्स टू द चुम्बी वैली एंड द अदर अपवर्ड along the Tista River to compass the Song and Shigatse. In the period before the Chinese domination over Tibet, Sikkim was politically and strategically significant because through it, Tibet could be approached. Then Bhutan. Adjacent to Sikkim on the eastern side is the state of Bhutan. Being poor, the Bhutanese frequently raided the plains for looting wealth. In such raids, the Bhutanese kidnapped the Raja of Cooch Behar, who was a British protectorate. So सिक्किम के एडजेसेंट ईस्टर्न साइड पे भूटान है और वो बहुत ज़्यादा पुअर थे तो इस वजह से रेड्स भी बहुत ज़्यादा करते थे. और ऐसे ही एक रेड में भूटानीज ने राजा को किडनैप कर लिया था, कूच बिहार के राजा को, जो कि एक ब्रिटिश प्रोटेक्टोरेट था. And to rescue him, Warren Hastings attacked Bhutan, and as a result of the Bhutanese defeat, a small strip of land was annexed to the British territories. Then, Northeastern Frontier Agency, that is NEFA. The hill region between Bhutan and Burma was inhabited by the hill tribes. Akin to their counterparts in the northwest in all qualities except race and religion, these tribes were practically independent. Exhibiting strong and warlike spirit, they raided the plains to mitigate their poverty. Their predatory attacks became a matter of great concern for the British administration, particularly after 1826 when Assam was incorporated into India. And to pacify them, the government of India adopted the policy of offering them gifts and guaranteed protection. When the British frontier reached the watershed of the mountain ranges, they established a chain of posts and made the Tibetan government recognize the line, which is known as McMahon Line. So, Northeast Frontier Agency, that is NEFA, was one of the political divisions, the British India and later the Republic of India till 1972 when it became the Union Territory of Arunachal Pradesh. Its administrative headquarters was in Shillong till 1974 when it was transferred to Itanagar. Now here are some questions for you. First, why were the British so much concerned about establishing their supremacy in the northwestern frontier of India? And second, what were the main objectives of the British Indian government's foreign policy in the Northeastern Frontier Agency? That's all for this session. Thank you and have a nice day.